to welcome you here today and offer our congratulations and ongoing support to Gay Switchboard. As you all know, Outhouse is Dublin's only dedicated space for the community to meet. More than a physical building, it is a family. The support services like Gay Switchboard Ireland just about manage to stay open, and only do so because of the good will of volunteers. It is not alright that many of these volunteers themselves staff the line because they know from first-hand experience how utterly isolating life can be. This needs to be said, and I feel it needs to be heard more clearly than it currently is by our public representatives and civil servants. If reports and policies are to have any real meaning, then surely they must be followed by real actions. LGBT citizens have a right to be provided with targeted quality services. There are still so many LGBT individuals who are driven to the margins, ostracised by their families, alone in their workplace or communities.
Up there. Switchboard is here every single day of the week, 7 days a week. The fact that 40 years after it was first set up, that it's still here, says a lot. We've had a lot of progress in equality for people, for the LGBT community, but our phones are still ringing. We're not there for the really bad cases, we're there for every single case. Equally, we're not just there for LGBT people, we're there for everyone in the community. We're there for the family, we're there for the friends, we're there for the allies, and we're there for anyone who wants to ring up and discuss something with us. Our volunteers are trained primarily to listen and support people. That's what they do, so that's the key. Because part of what we do is confidential. By the fact that I'm director of the service and Maria's publicity coordinator, we have to put ourselves out there. Some of our volunteers do, but everything we do is confidential. So I'm here, public face of Switchboard, as is Maria. But we're not going to tell you about what we hear on the phones. We couldn't do what we do without volunteers. So we recruit volunteers twice a year in March and maybe November, December. So our next recruitment will be in probably mid-March. The best way to find out when that will be look at our new snazzy website, which is officially launched. It went live there this morning. Or look at Facebook or look at Twitter, where the most current stuff is find out more about that. Finally, I've already, I hope I thank you all for coming today. If it happened, thanks a million for coming along today. Thanks for supporting Gay Switchboard throughout the years, all the individuals and organisations that have supported what we do. For today was that, 40 years of a service, a continuous service to the LGBT community is a fantastic recognition. And I laughed at the idea that it was called Tel-A-Friend because the word gay couldn't be put into the phone book. And obviously, I think I always remember the taxi home was, when the taxi man would ask, "So where are you tonight?" My life for the first few years, especially after coming out, so to speak, I actually don't even like that phrase personally, but beginning to come to terms with who I was, consisted of lies. It consisted of, it became routine whereby I used to have to make up in advance to the taxi man before I get into the taxi. Where was I tonight? Because I wasn't telling him that I was at the church, and I wasn't telling him that I was in out the Liffey or anything of the likes. And that's wrong. That's completely wrong. The next thing was, Monday morning in college, the bus down to Maynooth, or else the train down to Maynooth from Connolly Station, was where I made up my story of how I spent my weekend. And again, I'd think of other places than the places that I was in for the weekend, because I wasn't comfortable in my own skin. And most definitely, even 20 years ago, in my opinion, it wasn't as easy to say maybe where you were as opposed to...
It is a celebratory occasion. The rebranding of the service that you provide in a different Ireland is something to celebrate and to acknowledge the work in the past of the pioneers of the gay movement. The people like David Norris and his confreres who took this decision back in the early 70s. It demanded a lot of courage and foresight at the time. And that it has been maintained since, that people have equipped themselves and taken training and learned how do you provide a service like this. You don't just walk into the building at night and respond to the telephone off the top of your head. It's a delicate and sensitive requirement, and the fact that people have been prepared to do that is in the best spirit of solidarity and comradeship, and everybody ought to be very proud of that achievement. You have all the time new champions, and perhaps the agenda that George set out ought to be more aggressively put to us. My friend and colleague John Lyons is an outstanding ambassador. Like Tony, you will have noticed that I'm a man of considerable girth. And the best news that I've heard so far today, having been stuck with a bill in the boil until 5 minutes before I came here, is that there's food available. So I salute the achievement of the last 40 years. I think it's appropriate that government ought to acknowledge the contribution and the significance of this service.